countdown, there's still this little lag between what happens in the green room and what actually happens live. So now that I have filled that, welcome to the live stream of the Bold Business Podcast, where we're talking about burnout and, more importantly, beyond burnout, rethinking the way that we're working. And we're going to take an inward look today at ourselves. How are we building our own mental, emotional resilience? And here's the thing. There's so many ways to do it. There's so many indicators that it might be happening. And I have to make a quick plug, because later this month, Andrew, Ben, and Mark are appearing on our podcast. And I have to tell you, that particular podcast about this topic is going to be a must listen. Every single time I do a podcast, I think I'm going to have a favorite. And the current one is always my favorite, because we always hit that high level of excellence. And so you don't want to listen to me anymore. I want you to meet these people also. So we're going to do this today. We're going to introduce everybody. They will introduce themselves. Then they're going to answer a question. And then we are going to have a roundtable. So be watching and joining in the chat if you wish. After the fact, if you wish, we will be monitoring the conversation that is happening. And if you really don't want to listen now, but you want to listen to it in your RSS feed that goes through your preferred listening player of our podcast, do that on Thursday. With that, I want to say welcome, gentlemen. This is going to be a fantastic live stream that we're doing today for the Bold Business Podcast. And Andrew, CEO and founder of Day One, tell us who you are.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. This is really exciting. I think this is my first live stream podcast. So, jumping in feet first here. Like you said, I'm the founder and CEO of Day One. What is Day One? We are a community and ecosystem for early stage founders. And so it's a digital virtual community, and early stage founders join Day One so that they can tap into a really tight-knit community. They can take part in our curriculum and our learning programs, and they can tap into mentorship. And so it's really an accelerator-like program for people who are just super early stage and looking to kind of accelerate through that starting primordial phase of building a business.
The primordial phase is so true on so many levels. All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I'm glad you're here today. All right, Ben, founder and CEO, fellow podcast, audio media host, take it away. Tell us.
There's a lot of pressure here. I mean, being on your show, I've got this great pressure on my shoulders. My name is Ben Baker. My company is Your Brand Marketing. What we are is we're a communications company that's been around for 25 years. We help people tell their story both inside and outside the company. So it's about, what is your story? Who do you tell it to? Why do they care? What is the value that you bring to people? And how do you get them to retell the story either inside the company or outside the company over and over again? I've been podcasting for almost 10 years now. My last show, the one that I'm currently doing, is in its 5th year. It's got over 270 episodes. But what we do for the most part is we create podcasts, custom podcasts for companies. We work with large to enterprise level companies, and we have something called Podcast Host for Hire, which is an end-to-end, an internal secure system that allows us to host and distribute your information in a meaningful way so you can work on things like new product development, culture and purpose issues, change management. That's what we do.
Thank you so much. So glad you're here today, Ben. And you up-level my game too, this whole media, video, podcast host thing. We get to help each other out. And it's a good thing. Hey, Mark, welcome back. Mark was on you were in our first season and our second season, and now we're in the 4th season since you've been back. So we're so glad to have you.
Third.
Oh, you were in the 3rd?
No, I said, what happened in the 3rd?
I don't know what happened in the 3rd.
He's missing a ticket.
I know. I'm not sure what happened in the 3rd. At least I came out of the closet with it. We're no holds barred here. The dirty laundry. I didn't have Mark on in my 3rd season.
It was just a blur, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Mark, welcome back. Tell us who you are.
Well, brothers, my business name is AVG Management Consulting. It actually started July 1st of 2018 after almost 40 years working in 9 different industries and in management primarily. And I have an accounting background plus computer science. So, and I've used all of them in my career. I have been involved in all levels of management, primarily small and medium-sized enterprises and businesses, but some larger ones with over $1 billion in annual revenue. Certainly not top 50 companies or anything in North America or anything like that. But I did work for several years with one of the largest general contractors in the world, actually. And so basically June 30th of 2018, I left a senior management position in a business and started this company. And of course, then there were some things that I had to deal with. And then the pandemic hit, and it really hasn't gone very far. But my purpose is to assist businesses, primarily small and medium-sized businesses, get over hurdles and past speed bumps, get things refocused, improve management, whether it's to do with asset, financial management, or personnel management. And I guess I'm more or less a jack of all trades, but I'm just there to help based on the experience I've had.
Yep. They've named it wrong. It should be the mark of all trades.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
think to the point that I've been in 9 different industries. So
Right. A lot of different industries, which is fantastic. Okay. So now we're moving into the next part of our program, which is each of you is going to answer this question for yourself, and then we will talk about it. And so here's how it'll go. I will ask the question and I will say your name, and then you will answer the question, and we're telling everybody else. So if they come in the middle, they know what's happening as well. All right. Andrew, how do you build your own mental, emotional resilience and invest in your physical well-being to be able to grow your company?
I find this funny because I have, I think when we chatted about this, I guess I won't give too many spoilers to the episode, but I was like, I think I'm going to give you more examples of how to not do this than how to do this. But in some ways, I feel like those stories, everyone is in this boat of, man, we're really not quite living up to this like platonic ideal. And, you see the folks on Twitter who sort of like make a name for themselves with their wellness routine, and it just, I don't know, brings you down. So like the first thing I'll say to folks is like, you got to give yourself a lot of grace, right? I know I do, maybe a little too much to sort of slide and slip and kind of not maintain the routine, but it's just stinking hard. So don't get like up on yourself if it's not quite all coming together is my first thing. Because if you get in some sort of spiral about not doing the things you should do because it'll keep you from, and then it keeps you from doing them again, that's absolutely a dangerous place to be. So give yourself as much grace as you can. I do. So I'll start there. And then the other thing I'll touch on is definitely not like a routine. I'm not going to talk about like my, waking up at 4 a.m. to go running every day and things like that. I find, so Day One is a small business, a new business. We're a year old, and we help other new businesses that are very early. So it's very meta. I'm living through many of the stages that the entrepreneurs that we support are living through. And entrepreneurship is one of those things that I just kind of want to define burnout. Entrepreneurship is one of those things where you don't control the outcomes per se, but the outcomes are the only thing that matters. If you don't hit your number, if you don't get the sale, your business is, you got to try the next thing, or you might run out of runway and you might go under, right? You can't just like play the game and ride the ladder, like in maybe a normal job. An entrepreneur, and a lot of entrepreneurship has this too, right? You have to, you don't control the outcomes. And that's where burnout sets in, when you don't control the outcomes, when you feel yourself like running into walls, running on a treadmill, but not being able to control it. And then that stress sits in. You have to make your numbers for the quarter. You don't know how. And that's going to keep you up at night. And that's going to eat at your gut, and you're not going to eat. And it's going to like really erode your wellness. So part of what I've tried to do for myself when I find myself in those moments of like really sweating the outcomes is just to know that, just to like reinforce that they really are out of your control. And if you try to make them in your control, you're going to hit this spiral again, right? You're going to get that like sinking feeling in your gut, and it's going to like give you an ulcer. And so in some ways there's like a mental reframe for me. I need to step back and I need to say, okay, what can I control? Let's work on those things. Let's know that it may or may not work, and that like the consequences are something we'll deal with later. But so I don't know, the non-answer is that it's a lot of me reframing what I'm doing as an entrepreneur in this like intense work, to allow myself to like be in a space. I had to do this very recently. I was kind of spiraling on like a Sunday scary sort of way, just thinking about this week, not about this podcast. This was awesome, but just like the things the things that needed to happen this week. And it just took like a conversation with my wife and a reframing and like some big picture planning and some what do we control to just be like, oh, now I feel better. Didn't do anything. It happened over dinner, So anyway, sorry if that was a little long, but that's the best I got for us.
I love it. It's the best. You brought it today, Andrew. Thank you. Ben,
Yes.
how do you build your own mental emotional resilience and invest in your physical well-being to continue to grow your company?
Single malt scotch and win the Powerball. It's really that simple. It's really simple. It's that easy.
Which one have you done?
Highly
both?
repeatable.
I got the single malt scotch. The Powerball has just eluded me from this point in time. But but you got to be helpful. The problem is you got to buy a ticket. I keep forgetting to buy a ticket. But in all seriousness, it really comes down to understanding that what you can do is control your reactions, not other people's actions. And too many people are sitting there worried about what everybody else is doing and the what ifs, and they're putting themselves in a spiral based on the what ifs in life. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Until it happens, it hasn't happened yet. And, it may happen. You need to keep an eye open. You need to be good. But if you're sitting there constantly focused on what may happen and all the horrible things that could happen in the world, all you're going to do is spiral. I'm a big believer the glass is not half full or half empty. It's refillable. And you need to sit there and look at the world in a position where the world is part of a refillable glass. And it's up to us to decide what we want that glass to be full of. For me, it's single malt. For other people, it's different things. But we need to sit there and say, okay, what do I want my life to be? What can I control? What are the things that I can do to make my life better? And be able to look forward and sit there and say, these are the goals. These are the short-term goals. These are the medium-term goals. These are the long-term goals. Okay, I don't have the skills to get to the long-term goals. What do I need to do? Who do I need to align myself with? Who do I need as a mentor? Who do I need as a coach? Who do I need to talk to on a regular basis to build the skills in order to be able to get to where I need to be? So I think that, building that emotional resilience comes down to, first of all, knowing yourself, knowing what you do well, knowing what you don't do well, and stop beating yourself up for the things you don't do well, and go find a partner who does those things well and make friends with them. Like, you don't want me doing your accounting for you. I have an accountant. I pay my accountant extremely well. Mark, we're going to have a conversation. But you know what? It's realizing that, you don't want me painting your house, and you certainly don't want me, doing your accounting. But if you have communication issues, I'm your guy. So I focus on the communication. I focus on my sweet spot, on my superpower, and bring in experts and let them do what they do best and trust them to do what they do best. And realize, is it exactly the way I would do it? Probably not. But that's okay, because it'll probably be just as good, if not better, in the end.
Cheers to that. And I know some people watching, like you and me, Ben, it's only 8:30 in the morning. And I don't know is it ever too early to be filling that glass with scotch?
The sun is over the yardarm somewhere.
That's right. That's exactly.
That's the beautiful thing about a 24-hour world. The sun is over the yardarm somewhere.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Okay. Hey, Mark, how are you building your mental, emotional resilience to invest in your physical well-being and grow your company?
Well, Andrew and Ben both touched on what I have always believed, or not always believed, I learned, I guess. I firmly believe that 20% of life is what happens to you, and 80% is how you deal with it. And that 20%, a lot of it's not in your control, and you still have to respond appropriately and not let it take you down, not let it stress you out. And the other important thing is that it's going to happen. We all have our breaking point. There are always those hot spots in our minds that set us off. And the next thing after that is, if it sets you off, you got to have the resilience to come back from it. A hockey player, a football player, they work in shifts and whatever on the ice. And it's not just their strength and skill but the resilience to come and be ready and give their best effort the next shift that they have to go out. So being able to respond and return to a level playing field, eye surface, whatever, and it's a very slippery surface that we all deal with every day. You need to have that resilience to come back even from the deepest problem and issue that you're handling. So the 20-80% rule in my mind is what people have to consider. Life is full of hurdles and roadblocks and tragedies and this sort of thing. And we all have to deal with them. And it's a case of coming, not just, or how many times you've been knocked down. As long as you get up one more time than you don't, that's how life is. And that's what's important.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, for everybody now, this is kind of like round robin, free for all. Try not to interrupt each other too much, and that's okay, because I'm thinking about these answers, and I'm actually, I was in a meeting this morning with a group called Firestorm based out of Boulder, Colorado, and we were meeting online. And the question of the day was this question, because I got put on the spot. Jess always has something to start a conversation with. And you know what? I answered then, and I'll share it here because I think it's true for me personally. And we each have a trigger. We each have some sort of a guide that tells us we're coming up on this thing that's stressful. And so to add to the amazing information is, well, let's define the start line. When are we overstressed? When have we been stressed too long? When have we not made any changes? So we're on this path to burnout, and that we can change that course ourselves with our own actions. And you know what mine is? It's cleaning out drawers. If I start cleaning the backs of the closets, if I start vacuuming out those drawers, where there's always something that gets in the bag, especially where you keep your spices or who knows, cookies or crackers or whatever, there's always something to clean out. So when I'm in that, and it's work time, or when I'm in that, and that happens in my office too, and maybe not the crumbs, but still stuff everywhere shoved in drawers. If I'm going through the backs of the closets and files, same thing. So for me, there might be some avoidance in there, but I also think I'm looking for something that I know I can complete and that I know I have in my control, so I can face the thing that's not in my control that I don't know the outcome of. So that is something that I wanted to add. And I'm curious, do you have a situation like that? Do you know what your thing is that goes, oh, I'm mentally pausing, or I feel like I need to be doing something, or I know this is the way through, or it's, oh, well, if I clean out all the things in the back of the closet, but then the candy comes out, or, but then I binge watch some movies or do something else. I haven't seen the cue. It's the next cue, right? We always have those milestones along the way. And I will gladly say I've been on this earth for 43 years and I'm excited for however many more that I have. And I will tell you, I wish I had known these little milestones earlier. I wish I had taken note earlier, because I think I only know those two. And I think there are a few more. How about you?
It's a good question. I mean, what are the triggers, or what?
How do you notice that you're starting to respond to be able to go, well, I've got to recognize what I'm filling my glass with. Maybe it's not what I want. Or as Andrew said, I know I have no control of the outcomes, yet I have to. So what are my go-tos to know that I have to face this uncertainty?
It's interesting because, the triggers for me, are usually when it comes to, you have too many things happening at the same time, whether it's too many people talking at the same time with competing conversations, or whether it's, too many people, throwing things at you at the same time. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that these people should know the answers and, come to you. When I had employees, you couldn't come to my office unless you had two solutions. If you had a problem, you could come to my office, but you had to have two solutions, and we would talk them through. But there's times where people just come and they come at you with question after question after problem after problem after problem. And after a point, it elevates to a point where you're sitting there going, okay, no mas, I've got to shut down for an hour. And for me, it's either going for a walk, or it's just getting away from either the social media or the phone or whatever, and having an hour of quiet time to myself that I can reflect and sit there and say, okay, even if I build a list and say, what are the priorities? Now that we know what the problems are, what are the priorities? And when I can create a list of priorities and be able to check them off one at a time, deal with this, check it off. Deal with this, check it off. Deal with this, check it off. Life gets so much easier. But if you try to deal with everything all at the same time and do that fallacy of multitasking, all it does is it throws me into more of a loop.
Okay. So, and do you catch yourself before you get in the loop, Ben, or do you actually go, oh, I guess I'm in the loop now, I'm ready to make change?
You know what? It all depends. I mean, sometimes I'm cognizant enough to see that it's coming and be able to walk away. Sometimes it's after I've said, okay, guys, I just need 10 minutes. Everybody just give me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And, I try not to get to that stage. But you know what? We're all human. We are absolutely all human. And I think that we need to realize that those triggers are coming, or that stress level is coming, and be able to give ourselves those release points. And I think that that's really important, is to sit there and say, look, either it's I need 10 minutes by myself, or walk away from a situation, or shut things down, or whatever you need to do to still be professional. But you need to realize that you need to take some time for yourself to diffuse a situation, bring it back down to a level of normalcy or close to normalcy, and be able to refocus in a way that's going to allow you to move forward again.
Yep. Thank you.
That's what you're able to do. You're able to recognize the symptoms, and you will admit to there being a problem and something you've got to do to count. That's perhaps the biggest thing that a lot of people who get to the point of burnout, they don't recognize the symptoms or don't admit it, refuse to admit it, because they have a long-term goal or objective that's in their sights and they can't see beyond that. It's almost like a tunnel vision, where that's their goal, objective, and these other things, it doesn't matter. But then what the final cost can be is their own physical and mental well-being. And that's the problem. Most people don't recognize, or fail to recognize, and then fail to admit. That's part of the problem. And I think probably the three of us, or four of us, have all got to the point where we kind of recognize these things and admit to it. But we're past that stage of corporate ladder climbing, perhaps, and sort of accepting where we are. And that's part of the thing. And I went through the same thing, where all I could see was forward in a small scope. And it took me a while to recognize what was happening, what I was doing to myself, what I was doing to my family. And that was pretty scary.
Yeah. Shout out to Bonnie, by the way. If anybody's looking at the chat room, Bonnie's got some great comments in there. So
yes, I was going to shout out Bonnie as well. I'm so glad she's sharing how she knows too. Bonnie, thank you for commenting in addition to watching today. She says she gets silent, and when she reaches that point, she knows that the stress is too much. Yeah.
One thing that you guys are making me think of as I was soaking in that dialogue right there is there's the recognition of the symptoms to then have your mitigations. In the life of an entrepreneur, I know, like, I always go there, and we're all entrepreneurs. It can be the life of an entrepreneur, but like when the things are when the context of an entrepreneur, when you're doing these things that's new, you're selling, it's out of, you need this, like, you're not just an employee in a thing that is like humming. You have a new project, you have a new initiative, something is on you to make it work. So when we're in these tough environments, right, whether it's every aspect as an entrepreneur or some aspect as an employee, so with that setup, I was thinking, you guys were talking about the recognition and the mitigation. And then I was thinking, okay, if I'm creating like a meta theory here, there's also the sort of causes, right? And so I think we sort of all started with that idea as well. What causes? It's the out of controlness, right? It's, but your example there, Ben, of like when somebody comes to you, and if they don't bring those solutions, not only does it like start to like stress you out, because now you're like in like, a stressful solution finding mode all day. I was putting myself in that moment. I was just imagining people coming to me all day with problems, no solutions. I would get stressed out on two levels. I would get stressed out from thinking about solutions all the time, and just knowing in the back of my head, what's going on? Why are they not coming to me with problems? Like this system isn't working. This like setup is wrong. It's not just like the surface level problems. It's a deeper problem that I either, let's say I hadn't told them to come to solutions. Like I haven't managed them well. I haven't set the culture right. Right. And so there's some, I was just reflecting, like when something's not working, right? Like when you're not meeting your sales targets quarter after quarter, it's probably not because like your immediate actions are bad. Maybe it is, but it's probably deeper. It's probably system level. You probably aren't targeting the right customers. You probably have the wrong funnels and flows, right? If you can't seem to get out of the minutia of daily problem solving, it's probably because you haven't empowered your employees to do that kind of thing, right? Exactly. So I don't know what that does, but one thing it does for me is it's like, it's almost a question I want to pose to you three, which is how do you solve tension by solving big problems versus fighting fires, right? The important versus the urgent. Like that feels like a great place to be. And I can see some like future state where you're like running your business from your phone on the beach, right? Because the whole thing is like set up and beautiful, right? That's like my panacea. So I don't know if that does anything for you guys, but like system level solutions.
The challenge is that most entrepreneurs have no understanding of what they're trying to create. And, everybody says, I want to be this unicorn company. I want to build this company that Google is going to buy out for X hundreds of millions of dollars, or, I need to have my millionth customer, whatever. You know what? 90% of businesses in the United States are small businesses. They're under 50 employees or under 100 employees. And you know what? They do some incredible things. They have some amazing products and services. They service a limited number of people, and they do well, and they make a living both for themselves and their families and their employees' families, and they make a difference in their community. But everybody is sitting there trying to sit there. Oh, I need to get bigger. I need to scale. I need to be, I need to be the next big X. And because of that, people are putting undue stress on themselves, and they're working those 60, 90, 120-hour weeks thinking if I just work harder, I can do it. And we need to tell people to get out of that mentality. We need people to get them to understand who they truly are, what's really important to them, and be able to set goals and activities and processes in place that are going to allow them to achieve their goals. You know what? You're right. I would love, maybe not next summer, but maybe the summer before, to take 6 months, get a fifth wheel with a really good internet connection, and go travel for 6 months and do my podcasting and my job on the road. I think that would be an absolutely phenomenal thing to do. And I'm building up the systems and processes now to be able to do that. But it's a matter of having those goals and realizing what's important to you as an individual and as a company, and moving forward from that point. Because I think that most people, if you ask them to articulate what their real goals are, they're all going to sit there, well, make more money. And that's not a goal. That's a yardstick.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so true.
There was a chat last week that talked about defining success, and the definition of success is different for everybody. And until you determine what your own success is going to be, like I said, your goal, your objective, overall, your success, when are you going to feel successful? And if you never feel successful and always striving for who knows where, you'll never get there because you don't know where you're going. And that's, I think, what you're kind of talking about there. It was quite interesting that we all had to determine our own level of success, sort of going in, not based on everybody else or whatever, and reach that point that, yeah, I'm successful. Sure, I can be better, but I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And that's a tough hurdle to get to, especially when you're worried about volume of work harder and more money and more of everything. It's
well, we all
success.
Go ahead, Jess.
No, that's fine. Go, Ben.
We're all measuring our lives against somebody else's highlight reel on social media, and that's the big problem. You see these people in beautiful suits in front of these cars and houses and airplanes, and they're talking about how wonderful and how successful they are. You know what? Truly, are they? Are they really? Or are they just fake it till they make it? And there's so many people that are sitting there going, "Oh, I need to be just like them. I just need to be. If I just act like them, if I live my life just like them, I'm going to make it too." Well, you have no idea what's going on in the back of their lives, and if they're even successful or not, or they're just, living a debt lifestyle. So live your own life.
Yeah, I think that's true. Who are we measuring ourselves against? And in our organizations, what companies are we comparing ourselves to? And is our when we are aspiring to be like another company, is it an accidental comparison? And I think that's a huge thing that we all take for granted. Online, offline, business, not business, is that when we are looking aspirationally, when there's sometimes this place where we get into this comparison, like what you were just talking about, Ben, and I'm all about aspirational. I'm all about a vision so big that I can't do it by myself. I love all of that. Now, I will tell you, me, myself, and I have a reason to be here, an impact to be made, but I myself don't have a purpose. If I had a purpose all by myself, my purpose would always be in competition with somebody else's purpose. And so when we're talking about superpowers, my biggest superpower is making other people, I shouldn't say making, allowing other people to recognize their own greatness and understanding what they can contribute to that bigger vision, whether they're leading the vision, whether they're the vision holder or not. If it's their vision and their purpose only, nobody else can really, they're always going to end up feeling like they're competing with you for that. And so I'm thinking about all of the ripples that come out of that and the words that we use and the way that we're showing up. Because if we want to grow a company from 5 to 15 or 15 to 50 or 50 to 150 or bigger, it can't just be ours anymore. We have to figure out how to hold something that others can. I always tell people, like, I lead this company, but it's not my company, it's our company, because you're not, I'm the host of this party. You're not mini me's. You're not doing things that just I say. It takes all of us and the way that we think to make that happen, which then comes back to rethinking the way that we show up to stresses is for the urgent versus the important kind of conversation is, can we learn other people's cues of when they're starting to get stressed? Can we create a space that it is safe to have stress that we don't know how to handle and show our warts and show our a little bit of our not positive, the positive side or the regular attitude and approach that we bring, because I think that we need to feel safe so that we don't accidentally end up comparing. We can always work on the aspiring and know, which puts us exactly where we want to be in neither camp.
Well, that comes down to great leadership. I mean, in whether it's leading yourself or it's leading others, making safe space for other people to fail.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great way to do it. There was a woman by the name of Nancy Richardson who used to be, I believe she was with Lululemon. I think I met her through Lululemon, if I remember correctly. And, her job as vice president, she says, look, I need to make safe space for my team to fail. I need to make for them to take risks, push envelopes, do things that are crazy and wonderful. And if they make a mistake, I'm going to protect them. As long as they did it with the company in mind, with the goals of the company in mind, with our objectives, our culture, and our brand in mind, if they fall flat, they fall flat. And you know what? We'll pick ourselves up. We'll learn from it together, and we'll move forward. And that's great leadership. That is great leadership, and that's got to come all the way from the C-suite all the way down, and instill in people that it's okay to make mistakes and learn from them and move forward, as long as you understand what we're trying to achieve as an organization and you have that in mind as you're failing.
I was almost just going to say and then if you have to sell it to yourself or tell it to yourself,
Absolutely.
Own it yourself to be able to lead it. I reflect again, I'm just too myopic in my own world. One person businesses, it's you're leading yourself before you're leading anybody. Right. And how do you create yourself that safe space to fail? Which I'm just playing that out. You can fail in building a business. In fact, you're going to fail at a lot of things on your way to building a successful business, because you have to try 1,000 things before you get your one light bulb to work. Right. And so, just owning that mentality. Do you have any tactics? And maybe Mark, you've been through the ringer a few times to see this. How do you instill that? How do you own that ability when like the business is on the line, right? I struggle with that. It's like I can only fail so many times before that failure. And again, I just know like big picture, it's not failure isn't what is it? Failure is not permanent or something like that, right? Like you have to get up one more time. That's what you were saying, Mark. But like you can always get up one more time, but maybe your business doesn't get up. How do you play around with that? That's very stressful.
I've been there. I've had businesses fold and go through tough times. I guess part of was part of my upbringing too. On a farm, it's seasonal, and you may have, like we're having right now, a whole bunch of rain where the wheat just got flattened and is laying in water, and it'll be of no value. You may have years where there's no money, or time periods are seasonal or whatever, and you go, okay, I've got a plan, and that's part of the mental toughness or mental resilience, is being able to withstand that. And I've been there. I've struggled. About almost 30 years ago, I had my power turned off. I know what that feels like, and it was awful. And the stresses then, because I had a wife and 2 kids and a mortgage and a car loan and whatever, time was tough. But I managed. I always thought, okay, I'll get through this. And not that I didn't struggle with it mentally myself. For sure. I'm the one that blames myself. I'm the one that takes responsibility. I'm the one that holds myself accountable. I don't blame anybody else. It's what I did and what I've done and what I've got to do is most important to get past this. And it's not easy, but that's part of building those scars, I guess, that toughens you up. And you've got to get through it. And some people do and some people don't. That starts from birth. I read recently, and it made sense to me. You know, they always, they talk, and everybody admits there's a mental illness can be diagnosed from birth, right? Or there's problems at birth. Well, also there is also mental resilience and strength at birth. And it's just, each one is something you build upon. And certainly mental strength and mental emotional resilience you build from birth, through experiences, through life, dealing with those things. Sometimes some people, because they're not born with that resilience, don't deal with it as well as those who are stronger with that. And it takes time and personal care. You've got to have mental health. You've got to have physical health. You've got to have, people will say, spiritual health. They got to have all these health, and you got to do that yourself. Nobody else can do that for you. And that's the thing. You've got to say, okay, I can get through this. I've gotten through things before. This is a little tougher and more difficult, but I will get through this. And you just fight. You got to figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through it? Rather than spending all that time and it happened to me. Oh, woe is me. It's a case of happened. I've got to get through this. I can't fail. I've got to go forward. And it's just something, again, that's part of the mental resilience and emotional resilience, is to say, okay, that was yesterday. I'm worried about today and tomorrow. And let's do what I have to do to get beyond this. It's just something you got to tell yourself, work through. There's no magic pill. It's just determination and your own mental fortitude to get beyond the things that seem that you're not going to get beyond. You just do it.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Try, you do it.
But
Yoda.
But here's the thing, and here's the ugly baby in the room that nobody's willing to admit to. Most people don't have that resilience. Most people do not have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You know, we're dealing with a culture right now where 50% of the people are talking about quitting their jobs within the next 12 months. And all these people have this romantic idea that they're going to start a company because they've got an idea. An idea alone is not going to do it. You have to understand finance. You have to understand business. You have to understand sales. You have to understand marketing. You have to understand, time management. You have to be resilient. There's a million things that it takes to be an entrepreneur that nobody tells you. And the only way you're going to find it out is when you get that baseball bat to the side of the head. And, the problem is that most businesses fail. I think within 5 years, they say that, 80% of businesses fail within 5 years. The latest statistic is, of the 2.5 million podcasts that are out there, 90% of them never make it past the 10th episode because people just go, well, this is way too difficult. I'm quitting. And, there's far many people that are meant to be employees. And that's not a slight. you know what? There's something phenomenal about being a number 2 or being a good number 3
Right.
within a company, and that, you know, we all need that as entrepreneurs. We need the people that are brilliant within their own, you know, within their own areas of expertise, and may just not have what it takes to be that entrepreneur. But people need to admit that.
So what I'm hearing too, because where I was going to go, Ben, was a slightly different path than you, and it's perfect to follow, which is, well, so what is that roadmap? What are the cues or the indicators that we're making progress or we are not? And if we are not, do we have, are we willing to take a real good hard look? Do we have what it takes? Are we willing to do it? What other resources do we need? How is that going to go? Most importantly, do we have the time? And the answer is maybe, maybe not. And guess what? If we make the wrong choice, we tend to get a correction. Sometimes it's death by 1,000 paper cuts because we never noticed. And it's when we stop and we look and we see, holy cow, all these shreds of paper are coming at us, we can actually make the choice. I worked with a company, a startup recently, who made the decision, I didn't hit my sales goals. We didn't get what we wanted. It's a technology company. And this was the time we said this was go or no go. And they made the decision to close because they didn't see the way forward based off of everything that they thought and all the decisions that had been made, a way to correct it before the runway ran out. So they proactively stopped. They proactively, I hope it comes back.
No, we're there.
Okay, good, because I just got a little notice. They proactively knew what that was. And by the way, that's a kind of a strength that many of us aren't willing to look at, to the point that was made earlier in many different routes. If I just do it a little longer, because we all like that story of, well, we've worked so hard and the gold is going to be, we're 3 feet or 3 inches away from the gold on the other side. Well, that's fine, but maybe it's not our gold to find. Maybe our job was to do that work and build that path.
Well, there's 2 different things. There's the one little thing, picture you see where the gold is a few feet away from where you're digging, and then there's the other one that says stop digging.
Right.
So you got to recognize which is which and take that gamble, make that decision and stick to it and live with it. That's the point. And those who keep pushing forward, I understand that. That's called determination. But the problem is there's also the point where you must recognize and admit. Again, it's recognition and admission that are 2 keys in business success or failure, or life success or failure. You've got to be able to see what is happening, understand what you're doing, what your goals, what your success levels are, and what's important. And people don't get that. All they see is has been mentioned. Oh, I need more money. I need that yacht. I need that. I do outer space. I need, like other people are doing. And you know,
right.
It's part of that your own personal decision that you've got to make and live with. That's the thing.
And trust in the planning.
Like, if you aren't dedicated to weight loss, you're not going to do it.
Yeah. So we are coming up on the end of our time. Before I close this out, I know I can tell this particular group, we could feed off of each other for hours and hours and hours. And so everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching, everybody who joins us on Thursday in the podcast feed, make sure you stop by, you listen, you share your comments here, because it's all of us that are working together that define this. And it's all of our experiences that can allow us to make our own best choices for right now. Okay, last thoughts. We have like 15 seconds each if you have a last thought before we start wrapping this up.
I'll throw it out there real fast. I was just going to build on what Mark said, which is, you know, there's a bigger picture you need to have. And if you as an entrepreneur who are like taking kind of control of your destiny to go build something, make a life for yourself, you really need to understand what kind of life you want to build, right? And it can be a small business, it can be a lifestyle business, it can be a unicorn. You just got to know, right? And then play all the variables and make all the decisions and pivot, fail, move on to the next one. It's when you take too myopic of a point of view perspective that like failure feels kind of final, but really it's never, right? So yeah, know what you're up to.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, go ahead.
Well, Well, I don't know. I keep going back to something Bonnie said there, and also on the idea about entrepreneur. One of the toughest things that an entrepreneur can do, two things. One is be accountable when you're a solopreneur, and number two, delegate. Learn how to delegate when it's not just you. And that's a good point that Bonnie brought up. And if you can't delegate and trust the people who work for you, you got a problem right there. So I'll just make that point.
Yeah, and I concur with both of those things. Is that it's about realizing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Don't beat yourself up on your weaknesses. Find somebody else who that's their strength, and either align with them, partner with them, or hire them. And we need to sit there and realize that our strengths are our strengths for a reason. Focus on those, and bring some people on board that are going to be able to augment and do the things that you either don't like to do or not good at.
And there you have it. Burnout, beyond burnout, rethinking the way that we're working. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining in today for the Bold Business Podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.